It's never easy to see a former Chief go through something like this, especially a guy like Doris Fountain, someone who's been fighting for a real shot in the NFL for years. Now, after suffering what appears to be a significant injury during training camp with the Chicago Bears, his future in football is in serious jeopardy. And for fans who remember his time in Kansas City, this news hits a little harder. Fountain wasn't a superstar. He wasn't a household name. But if you've been following the Chiefs closely over the past few seasons, you know exactly who he is. A guy who showed up, put in the work, and made enough of an impression to stick around longer than most would have expected. And that's what made him special to some fans: his effort, his grit, and his attitude. When news broke that Fountain went down during a non-contact drill, it immediately raised red flags. You never want to hear non-contact injury when it comes to a player fighting for a spot, especially at this point in the offseason. The reports from Bears camp suggest it's serious enough that his roster chances might be completely gone. And considering how competitive the wide receiver room in Chicago already is, this setback couldn't have come at a worse time. It makes you think, doesn't it? How quickly things can change in this league. One moment you're on the field, battling for a role, and the next you might be facing the end of your NFL journey. Fountain's situation is a reminder of how brutal the business side of football can be, especially for players on the fringe. Hey, quick question. Do you remember Fountain's time with the Chiefs? Maybe it was during preseason games or a few moments on special teams. If you do, drop your memory down in the comments. And while you're here, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps us out more than you know and keeps this kind of content coming for true Chiefs fans like you. Stick around because next, we'll take a closer look at Fountain's roller coaster ride through the NFL and how he ended up in this position in the first place. Doris Fountain's journey through the NFL has been anything but smooth. He entered the league with a glimmer of hope as a fifth-round pick by the Indianapolis Colts back in 2018. At 6'2", with solid speed and athleticism, he had the physical tools that scouts love in a developmental wide receiver. But like so many late-round picks, the road to relevance in the NFL was steep, and the obstacles came early. Injuries hit Fountain hard right out of the gate. After a quiet rookie season, he suffered a dislocated and fractured ankle during a 2019 training camp that effectively derailed his momentum with the Colts. He spent that entire season on injured reserve, and by the time he was healthy again, Indy had moved on. The business side of the NFL showed no mercy. Eventually, Fountain found his way to the Chiefs. And for fans in Kansas City, that's where his story started to get interesting. He never lit up the stat sheet, but he was a preseason standout and showed flashes that earned him a spot on the practice squad and, briefly, the active roster. He made a few key plays on special teams and always seemed to be around the action. In a locker room full of stars like Mahomes, Kelsey, and Hill at the time, Fountain carved out a role, not flashy, but meaningful. His time in Kansas City spoke volumes about his character. He wasn't the fastest or the flashiest, but coaches trusted him. He put in the work, took advantage of his reps, and became one of those guys you just couldn't help but root for. He was the definition of grinder, someone who showed up every day, kept his head down, and made the most of every opportunity. And even after being waived by the Chiefs, he didn't give up. He landed on the Bears' practice squad and started climbing the ladder again. That's why this latest injury hurts so much, because you know what he's had to fight through just to get another look. It's not just a setback. It's a punch in the gut for a guy who's been scratching and clawing for every inch of his career. Let me ask you, do you think the Chiefs should have given him more of a chance? Go ahead and sound off in the comments. And if you're one of the real ones still watching, consider subscribing. We're on the road to 5,000 Chiefs fans, and every single one of you makes a difference. Up next, we'll talk about what went wrong during training camp with the Bears and just how steep the uphill climb is from here. So what exactly went wrong in Chicago? For Doris Fountain, the Bears were supposed to be a second chance, a place to prove he still belonged in the league. After spending time on their practice squad, He'd earned a camp invite and was fighting for one of the final spots in a very crowded wide receiver room. But all of that came to a screeching halt when the injury happened. During a routine training camp session, Fountain went down during a non-contact drill. Now, that alone is usually a bad sign. Non-contact injuries, especially during a high-rep portion of camp, often point to something serious, like an ACL or Achilles. The team hasn't released official details just yet, but based on how quickly the coaches and trainers responded, and the fact that he hasn't been seen on the field since, it's clear the situation is grim. Now let's be real. Chicago isn't an easy team to break into right now if you're a fringe receiver. They've invested heavily in wideouts the past few seasons, and they're trying to build around their young quarterback with proven playmakers. Guys like DJ Moore and Keenan Allen are locked in. Then you've got younger, high-upside guys like Rome Odunze and Tyler Scott ahead of Fountain on the depth chart. That means the margin for error, or injury, is razor thin. Even before the injury, Fountain was likely battling for WR6 or a spot on special teams. So when this setback hit, it didn't just slow him down, it might have ended his shot entirely. NFL. Teams move fast, and if you can't contribute right now, they usually look elsewhere. That's just the brutal nature of the league. And here's something to think about. Should the NFL do more to protect players like Fountain who get injured in these make-or-break moments? It's worth asking, especially for the guys grinding through camp just to keep the dream alive. If you've got thoughts on that, drop them in the comments. Do you think teams in the league owe more support to these players? And, hey, if you want to stay in the loop on stories like this, go ahead and tap that notification bell. We're not just about the big names here on Total Chiefs News. We cover the full picture, top to bottom. Next up, we'll zoom out and talk about what Fountain's story says about life in the NFL for players just trying to survive. When we talk about the NFL, it's easy to focus on the stars, the Mahomes, Kelsey, and Chris Jones types. But the reality is, for every superstar, there are dozens of players, like Doris Fountain. Guys who are just one injury, one roster cut, or one practice away from being out of the league entirely. And Fountain's current situation is a reminder of just how unforgiving this game can be. Think about it. He's done everything right. He's shown up, stayed in shape, learned new playbooks, played special teams, battled through injuries, and kept his head down. But in the end, all it takes is one bad step, and the dream might be over. There's no guaranteed money, no long-term contract, no security. For fringe players, the NFL is survival of the fittest, and even that sometimes isn't enough. This is the part of football that fans don't always see. We love the game. We love the big plays and the highlights. But behind the scenes, there are hundreds of players just trying to make it to the next day. And the window of opportunity is so small. You can be one of the best athletes on the planet and still not make a 53-man roster. That's how tight the margins are. Have you ever rooted for a guy like Fountain to make the team? One of those long shots you can't help but pull for? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear which underdog story has stuck with you the most as a Chiefs fan. And while you're here, help us keep these stories alive. Hit the like button, and if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe. Total Chiefs News is built for fans who care about every level of this team, not just the stars. Coming up, we'll wrap things up by asking, could there still be a path forward for Doris Fountain? So is this truly the end of the road for Doris Fountain? Honestly, it's hard to say. If the injury is as serious as it appears, making another NFL roster could be nearly impossible. At 28 years old, with multiple injuries on his record and very little regular season tape, the odds are stacked against him. But if there's one thing his career has proven, it's that he doesn't back down easily. Maybe the NFL door is closing, but there are other ways to keep playing the game. We've seen players extend their careers through leagues like the UFL or CFL, places where they can rehab, get back into rhythm, and show the league they're still capable. If Fountain wants to continue playing football, there's a chance we see him resurface in one of those leagues before calling it quits. He's definitely earned respect around the league as a hard worker with the right mindset. And even if this is the final chapter, let's not forget what he accomplished. Making it to the NFL, even briefly, is something most players can only dream of. Sticking around for multiple seasons, bouncing back from injuries, and constantly putting yourself on the line to chase that goal, that's something to be proud of. So, what do you think? Should another team give Fountain a shot when he's healthy again? Or is it time for him to move on from playing? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you're still watching, you're the reason this channel keeps going. Do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we push toward our 5,000 subscriber goal. We've got more stories, more updates, and more Chiefs content coming your way. Thanks for sticking with us. This has been Total Chiefs News.